Preserve me, O God, for in thee I put my trust. O my soul, thou hast said unto the Lord, Thou art my God. My goods are nothing unto thee. All my delight is upon the saints that are in earth, and upon such as excel in virtue. But they that run after another God shall have great trouble. Their drink offerings of blood will I not offer, neither make mention of their names within my lips. The Lord himself is the portion of mine inheritance, and of my cup thou shalt maintain my lot. The lot is fallen unto me in fair ground. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. I will thank the Lord for giving me warning. My reins also chasten me in the night season. I have set God always before me, for he is on my right hand. Therefore I shall not fall. Wherefore my heart was glad, and my glory rejoiced. My flesh also shall rest in hope. For why? Thou shalt not leave my soul in hell, neither shalt thou suffer thy Holy One to see corruption. Thou shalt show me the path of life. In thy presence is the fullness of joy, and at thy right hand there is pleasure evermore. Peace be with you guys. As promised, I said I would come back and do another session. So here I am. Now, in the last chat, a commenter in the comment section, Jason Bourne, came. I think he asked all of one question to me and then just proceeded to try and do dawah inside the chat. So here is your chance, Jason Bourne, whoever you are. Some people seem to think that you're Ali Dawah. I don't know if you are or you're not. I'm not going to guess. Either way, whether you are or you aren't, you're invited to join this live stream and to debate with me whether God can enter into his creation or not. And if you don't, then I will offer it out to other Muslims who might want to do it for you. However, don't say that, anyone's ignoring you. And I would say if there are people, like if you guys want to chat amongst yourselves, that's not a problem, but if you want to listen to me, obviously listen to me. Or if you want to do a bit of both, do a bit of both. So let me just explain for anyone who doesn't know what the Christian position is. We Christians believe that God can and does enter into his creation, and did so in a very special way through the person of our Lord Jesus Christ, who we believe is God incarnate, so a fully human, fully divine being that is Jesus Christ our Lord. And Muslims object to this. They object to it quite furiously, suggesting the idea that for some reason God can't enter his creation, this idea that it entails some kind of innate contradiction, or that it means that God has to change, or it means that that creation couldn't bear the weight of his presence, or that it involves a irreconcilable contradiction on logical grounds. This idea of God entering into his creation is something that Muslims object to about what we Christians believe. And this is a debate that I've tried to have multiple times at the corner. Funnily enough, Ali Dawah and a whole host of the Dawah team, as always, ran from the debate. So I'm going to just lay out the case, and this is open to any Muslim who wants to respond to this. Which is that your texts don't support your arguments. Now, if your texts were consistent in their teaching in saying that, Allah doesn't enter into his creation, I mean, show me where it says in those words in the Quran, please. That's my first question. In those exact words, Allah does not enter into his creation, or I will not enter into my creation. I'll be more generous to you than many of you Taoists are to Christians, in that I'll even accept words other than the ones I've just pronounced, words that say the same but in different words. I'll be more generous to you than you are to us. But show me, because I don't see that in the Quran. I don't see in Islamic texts clear teachings that Allah cannot or does not enter into his creation. Nowhere. So here's the thing. When we actually reflect upon Islamic texts, what we see is, despite what Muslims argue, that the text is quite easy with the idea that Allah enters into his creation. It's quite relaxed about the idea that Allah can enter into his creation. And he does so regularly, as we'll come to see. So Jason Bourne for Mr. Biggs is a guy who that's the name he goes by. He might turn up on the chat. He turns up on my chat every now and then, just doing dawah. So I'm opening it up to any Muslim who appears regularly in my chat to come and engage with me in a debate. But when we look at what the Quran teaches, and what we look at what the Islamic texts teach, they are comfortable with the idea of Allah entering into his creation. So firstly, the first problem is that the Muslims are manipulating the meaning of their own holy book. The holy book is saying one thing, but Muslims are saying something different, which ironically is something that the Quran accuses the Christians and the Jews of doing, but that's actually what Muslim scholars do. The second thing is that if we were to take the argument seriously that Muslims make against the idea of God becoming incarnate in the person of our Lord Jesus Christ, or in his Holy Spirit coming into creation, then we need to apply consistency and then take those arguments and apply them to the passages that we're about to discuss, and point out all the kind of logical problems that you throw at us now suddenly appear in your holy book. Your holy books, because let's face it, you basically treat the hadiths like they're the Quran. Practically, not in doctrine. So in terms of what I think, here's what I think. I think the Quran is very clear that Allah can and does enter into his creation. And the hadiths are very clear that Allah can and does enter into his creation. And I want to state for the record, from a Christian perspective, I have zero problems with that at all. What I do have a problem with is the fact that Muslims are saying that Allah doesn't enter into his creation when the Holy Book says that he does and he can. So to try and demonstrate that, firstly, let's just go to some very obvious statements. So in Surah 67, ayah 17, and I will send out the link so that any Muslims can join me in a bit. But if Jason Bourne, you appear, I'll invite you on straight away. So in Surah 67, let's have a look. Surah 67. Ayah 17, it says 16 and 17. Let's have a look. Do you feel secure that he who is over the heaven will not cause the earth to sink with you and then it should quake? Or do you feel secure that he who is over the heaven will not send against you a violent whirlwind? Then you shall know how terrible has been his warning. Now, when we look at other translations of this text, you find that the text is translated as in heaven. So let's just see if we can do that live and pull up a bunch of translations and just compare how they translate them. That's one thing that we Christians have noticed, is that Muslims have been modulating their Quranic translations to basically take into account, let's have a look, Surah. So what we got, Surah 67, 16 and 17. Okay, that's not a great link. Let's just find a different one. So Surah 67. (16 and 17). So in this translation, we have it, "Are you secure that he who is in the sky will not make the earth swallow you while it quakes?" And then in verse 17, it says, "Are you secure that he who is in the sky?" So this is the translation, online translation and commentary, alquran.info. That is not my translation that I've used. So we've got one from Yusuf Ali. We've got another one from there. Let's pull up another one. So Surah 67, 16 and 17. "Are you confident that the one in heaven will not cause the earth to collapse beneath you as it spins, or are you confident that the one in heaven will not unleash against you a violent storm? Then you will know that is my warning." So as you can see, Islamic translations say that Allah is in creation, in heaven, in the sky, and the Yusuf Ali one translates it as, feel secure that he who is over heaven. Now, I just want to pull up one other thing. Let's just do this 1 second. Okay. Just want to pull up another website that's got Quranic verses, and it'll allow me to compare lots of different Qurans at the same time, I hope. Not that one. Not that one. Sorry, should have had this open at the beginning. Maybe it's this one. Oh, it's not that website either. Sorry, I did have a website where you can pull up lots of different Qurans all at the same time. Which is annoying that it is not there now. Okay. Well, we'll press on without it. We'll just have to do it the hard way. So in terms of this passage, we've got two translations that are saying that he is in creation, and one that says that he is over creation. However, and so I feel that it is fair to say that because we've got multiple translations of the Quran, and I've got another one here, actually, I've just realized, bear with us. So here's a third translation. So, and in this one, we've got it in Surah 67. Surah 67, verse 17 says, "Oh, do you feel secure that he who is in heaven?" And that's a 67:17. So we've got three translations now that all say that he's in heaven or in the sky, and then one says that he is over. Now, this is clear that it is a legitimate translation of this verse to show that that Allah is in his creation. The Quran is not uncomfortable with this idea. Let us look at Surah 6:3 of this translation, and let's see what it says. It'll probably say over the heaven, because translators tend to be consistent. But in Surah 6:3 it says, "And he is Allah in the heavens." There you go. He is Allah in the heavens and on the earth. He knows what you conceal and what you reveal, and he knows what you earn. So it's saying that he is in creation. The Quran is very clear about this. This isn't to say that he is also not outside of creation, that he is not above creation. I'm not trying to suggest that the Quran is teaching that he is a part of creation. I'm just trying to say that the Quran is comfortable with him being in creation. Another example of that is Surah 5:75. So if we go to that, it says this in Surah 5:75. Nope, let's have not that one. Surah 29-12. Surah 29-12. Guys, for those of you that are here to help, if I reference a biblical passage, but I don't quote it, please do put that into the links. Please put that into the chat so that people can see it. And also, guys, whilst you're waiting for me to find this verse, please do like, subscribe, and share this video. And if Jason Bourne is present, you're welcome to come on. You don't have to hide away. So it says this in Surah 20, reading from verse 9. And has there come to you the story of Musa? When he saw a fire, he said to his family, "Wait, verily, I have seen a fire. Perhaps I can bring you some burning brand therefrom, or find some guidance at the fire." And when he came to it, the fire, he was called by name, "O Musa, verily I am your Lord. So take off your shoes. You are in a sacred valley, and I have chosen you. So listen to that which will be revealed. Verily, I am Allah. So worship me and perform salat for my remembrance." So Allah is speaking from the burning bush. He is identifying himself as Allah. This same story, let's just sit on this for a moment, but we're going to look at the same story from some other passages. The one speaking is Allah, and he is speaking from the burning bush. Muslims try to argue that this is some kind of, it's like a telephone. It's like the fact that you're hearing my voice through this microphone and it's coming through your speakers. That's what's happening. But that's shirk, because what you're saying is that there is a created thing that can contain the words of Allah and transmit them, and that there is a created thing that can imitate the voice of Allah. That's shirk. Now, the reality is that the text is not saying what you're saying. It isn't saying that Allah spoke through the burning bush, that he created the burning bush and then spoke through it, but was not in creation. It's saying that when he came to it, he was called by name, O Musa. The one speaking said, "I am your Lord. I have chosen you. I am Allah." That's what is happening right there. And it gets worse for you, because when you start looking in other passages of the Quran where Muhammad tells the same story, and he doesn't tell it in the same way, you've got other problems, but I'll deal with them maybe another day. So in Surah 27, 7-9, it states this: "Remember when Musa said to his household, 'Verily I have seen a fire. I will bring you from there and some information, or I will bring you a burning brand, that you may warm yourselves.' But when he came to it, he was called, 'Blessed is whoever is in the fire and whoever is around about it. And glorified is Allah, the Lord of mankind. O Musa, verily it is I, Allah, the Almighty, the All-Wise.'" Now, just think for a minute. You've got the same event there, and the descriptions of the account and what is said are different. So what was the words that Allah used to greet Moses from the burning bush? That's a problem if you believe that this is literally Allah's own testimony about the event, because that means Allah is giving two different testimonies about an event that he was apparently a witness to. What I think really happened is Muhammad tried to tell the same story twice and couldn't remember how he told it the first time, and so told the general gist with a new nuance. In Surah 28, 29-30, if we go to that, which is just the next surah over, and look at Surah 29-30, it reads thus: "And when Musa had fulfilled the term and was traveling with his family, he saw fire in the direction of Tur. He said to his family, 'Wait, I have seen a fire. Perhaps I may bring to you from there some information, or a burning firebrand that may warm yourselves.'" So Allah's changing the very words that Moses spoke. That's a question for you. That's an error in the Quran. Why is Allah misquoting Moses? Which were the actual words of Moses, and why does Allah give three different versions of what Moses said? "So when he reached it," the fire, "he was called from the right side of the valley in the blessed place, from the tree." There you go. It just said, "from the tree. O Moses, verily I am Allah, the Lord of mankind." Now, forgetting the problem of the textual, the literary problem of the fact that Allah is giving a testimony about what happened between him and Moses, and he gives three different versions with different words on the lips of Moses and different words on his own lips. That's his testimony, and he's a witness that can't agree with himself, and this is meant to be literally the words of Allah. Forgetting that for a moment, just consider what you've heard. Allah has spoken from the tree. Now Muslims believe in Tawheed. We know you do. So for those of you that don't know, the idea that Allah is one and can't be divided, he can't be separated. There's no division within him. If Allah is speaking from the tree, if his voice is coming from the tree, then his presence is there at the tree. And if his presence is there at the tree, then that means Allah is in creation. If you're saying that it's like a phone, then what you're saying is that a creation is imitating the voice of Allah, which is shirk. But it's not saying that. The Quran is not saying that he's projecting his voice like some kind of ventriloquist. It's saying that Allah is speaking from the tree to Moses and identifying himself as Allah and commanding Moses to perform salat, to worship him. So the reality is that the Quran is quite comfortable with the idea of Allah entering into his creation. Now, I just want to pull up some commentary notes that were written with regards to this. Let's just see if I can find it. It's connected to the passage where Moses speaks to Allah and says he wants to see Allah, and a mountain is destroyed. Let's see if I can find it. It'd probably be quicker to do this via Google. 1 second. So what we've got, guys, is the fact that the Quran is saying that Allah was there present at the burning bush, which is obviously problematic if you're trying to argue that Allah can't enter into his creation. How does Allah appear as a burning bush? How does the voice of Allah emanate from a burning bush? How do the words of Allah transmit through created things to be projected to all without compromising the idea that Allah has in some way interacted and entered into his creation? Now, let me just find this passage. Okay, I think it's in Surah 7, 143. Let's hope it's the right one. All right, here it is. Yep. So in Surah, now, just as an example, another example that Allah does enter into his creation. And that's the point that I'm trying to demonstrate. I'm just trying to demonstrate that Islamic texts are comfortable with the idea of God entering into his creation. So Muslims need to stop the pretense that they've got some kind of issue with God entering into his creation. Because if you've got a problem with God entering his creation against the Christians, then you need to reject your Quran and you need to reject your Hadiths, because your Quran and your Hadiths are telling you that Allah enters into his creation. So be consistent. Either drop your arguments against the Christians or reject your Quran and reject your Hadiths. In Surah 7, 143, just as another example, has anyone spotted, by the way, Jason Bourne? Has he turned up, or has he come under one of his other aliases? In Surah 7, 143, we read this: "And when Musa came at the time and place appointed by us and his Lord, Allah spoke to him. He said," his Lord, Moses spoke to him. He said, "O my Lord, show me yourself, that I may look upon you." Allah said, "You cannot see me, but look upon the mountain. If it stands still in its place, then you shall see me." So when his Lord appeared to the mountain, in other words, when he made his presence felt within creation, he made it collapse to dust, and Moses fell down unconscious. Then when he recovered his senses, he said, "Glory is to God. I turn to you in repentance, and I am the first of the believers." Just to let you know, guys, that's actually one of my favorite stories in the Quran. I think it's really, if you imagine it, it's a really beautiful kind of story and image that demonstrates the glory of God. I don't believe in it, but I'm just saying it's a beautiful story. In verse 7, 143, we read this. This is the commentary. Okay, this is the commentary given by the Muslim scholars in Saudi Arabia who produced this Quran. Listen to what they say about Surah 7, Ayah 143. These are their words. Listen. "The appearance of Allah," those were the very first words, "the appearance of Allah to the mountain was very little of him. It was approximately equal to the tip of one's little finger, as explained by the Prophet when he recited this verse." The Hadith is quoted by Tirmidhi. So the scholars are saying that Allah appeared to the mountain in a very small way. And look what a devastation it did to the mountain. So therefore, how can Allah enter in his creation in any big way? But the moment you admit that, guys, and they're using a hadith quoted by Tirmidhi to back this. This is their words. Let's try and get it close so that you can see that I am not just making that up. I have read what they have said. These are Muslim scholars of the Quran. That's what they're saying. Yeah. So this isn't some, Christian pamphlet I'm reading from. They are admitting that Allah has entered into his creation. So what is your argument, guys? Now, the thing is, when you consider these kinds of passages, then you have to accept that the Quran doesn't have a problem with the idea of God entering into his creation. But now let's apply the Islamic arguments. If Allah enters into his creation, it creates a paradox because the infinite has entered into the finite. Sorry, paradox is a Christian word. The Taoists would say this means a contradiction. How can the infinite enter into the finite? Well, it's a great question. Why don't you answer it? Your Quran is saying that it does. You are saying that it doesn't. So show me in the Quran, in these words, where Allah says, I will not or cannot enter into my creation. Or show me words that are clearly to that effect. It's a simple challenge, guys. And I'm going to send out the link very shortly so that Muslims can come on and respond. So, what is your argument? Has anyone seen Jason Bourne yet? Has he turned up? As my lovable troll appeared? So let's have a look, because it's not just the Quran. The Hadiths also state this. So, for example, this is taken from a website called Islamka.info, which is an Islamic website. And it reads this. So this is a Muslim asking a question to the ulama. He says, when half or a third of the night passes by, Allah descends to the lowest heaven and says, no one asks more about my servants than myself. Who is asking me? So I can give to him. Who is calling upon me? So I can answer him. Who is seeking my forgiveness? So I can forgive him. So the thing is, these hadiths, it's considered Sahih. This hadith is a Sahih hadith, which is proven in the soundest two books after the Book of Allah. It was narrated by Al-Bukhari in his Sahih 1145 and by Muslim 1261. So that's the Muslim scholars' response. So this is a Sahih hadith, and it is stating that Allah descends in the last third of the night to hear the prayers of his faithful. He descends. He's descending into creation. He's descending into the lowest heaven, is what your hadiths are telling you. So your own texts are telling you Allah can enter and does enter into his creation. Tell me, how can the infinite enter into the finite? How can that which is omnipresent be present loci? Now, I mean, let's just forget for a moment the ridiculousness of the image. And it is a ridiculous image, because that image of Allah descending in the third of the night and ascending at the end only makes sense if you believe the earth is flat. That way he descends at the third of the night and that he ascends. But if the earth is round and it's rotating, if he descends at the third of the night with a rotating world, he doesn't go back up, guys. He doesn't go back up. The image is ridiculous. It assumes a flat earth. And the reason why it assumes a flat earth is because the Quran teaches a flat earth, because Muhammad wasn't a prophet and he didn't know what he was talking about. But it is saying quite clearly that Allah is descending into his creation. So the hadiths are clear about him descending into his creation. Oh, what about the Day of Judgment? Another hadith. This is a hadith. Let me just give you the reference. Sahih al-Bukhari, Book of Tawheed, Hadith 7439. And this is what it reads. Let every nation follow what they used to worship, and now we are waiting for our Lord. Then the Almighty will come to them in a shape other than the one which they saw the first time, and he will say, I am your Lord. And they will say, you are not our Lord, and none will speak to him. None will speak to him then but the prophets. And then it will be said to them, do you know any sign by which you can recognize him? They will say, the shin. Because Allah says he's got a shin and he's going to reveal the shin. The shin. And so Allah will then uncover his shin, whereupon every believer will prostrate before the shin, him, and there will remain those who used to prostrate before him, just for showing off and for gaining good reputation. These people will try to prostrate, but their back will be rigid like one piece of wood. So it's saying that Allah appears to the believers in a shape. A shape is a created thing. I am a shape. Are we saying that shapes are platonically eternal? Is that what Islam teaches? That there is Allah, and Allah has a shape, and therefore form is eternal? That there is something within that we experience within the created order, form, shape, that is platonically eternal? That's shirk. Now, the fact that he appears in a shape means that it must be within the purview of vision, of conceptuality. That he's appearing in a shape means that it is comprehensible. It means it has dimensions. So Allah has entered into his creation. This is on the Day of Judgment. So Allah has entered into his creation according to your texts. So either drop the argument about Christians believing in God entering into his creation, or be consistent and drop your Quran and drop your Hadiths. Because you can't have it both ways. You can't tell Christians it's ridiculous to believe that God enters into his creation. Then charge us with, not listening to what our book tells us to believe in, which you do. You tell us, that the Bible doesn't teach the Trinity and that it doesn't teach that Jesus is God. But then that is exactly what you're doing. Your books tell you that your God enters into creation, and then you're telling us that your God doesn't. So who's right? Do I believe the Quran and the Hadith, or do I believe the Muslim Taoists? Now, if Allah is appearing as a shape and he is appearing as a shin, we've got even worse problems when we think about the Quran. So the Quran, as you all know, this is meant to be the words of Allah, or more specifically, the Arabic text that we see here. Yeah, sorry. This is meant to be the words of Allah, okay? But that's obviously on a page, isn't it? So the word of Allah, one of the attributes of Allah, one of the eternal attributes of Allah that is uncreated, has been captured by a printer and published on a page. It is here the very capturing of the words of Allah, the eternal word of Allah, is incarnate. Now let me ask you, Muslims, are these words eternal? Are these words eternal? The paper is not, the ink is not, but are the words eternal? Has the eternal word of Allah become incarnate into a perishable created thing? This is perishable and created. It could be destroyed. I mean, you Muslims in Egypt in 1924 went and sunk a whole bunch of these in the Nile River. Uthman went and burnt a whole bunch of these to try and cover up the fact that there were different Qurans. We've got those holes in the narrative. But you believe that these words are eternal, and yet here they are in a corruptible, breakable form. Now you do that, you believe that you treat this like it's holy, like these words are sacred, not because the paper is, not because the ink is, but because the words are. So the words you treat as sacred. That's why you keep the Quran on your highest shelf. That's why you wash your hands before you pick up or read the Quran. It's why you recite the Quran. You see them as sacred. And you see them as sacred because these are the words of Allah to you. So if they are the words of Allah to you, we can say that it has become incarnate. It is entered into creation. It is in a perishable form. I can destroy this Quran, but I can't, from your perspective at least, destroy the words of Allah because the words of Allah are divine and eternal. But if I did destroy this Quran, you'd be outraged. Why? Is it because the paper is special? No. Is it because the ink is special? No. It's because you think that these words are special. And why do you think they're special? Because you think that they are the words of Allah. So you've got an incarnation right there. But it gets worse because when you look at the Hadiths, guys, it says, and this is again quoting from islamka.info, so this is an Islamic website, it is proven in the Sahih Sunnah that the Quran will intercede for its companions on the day of resurrection. In Muslim 804, narrated by that Abu Umama al-Bahili said, I heard the Messenger of Allah say, read the Quran, for it will come on the day of resurrection interceding for its companions. Now, just think about the shirk involved in that idea. That the eternal word of Allah will become an intercessor. What is an intercessor? An intercessor is one who stands between one party and another party. He stands in the middle and he makes the case towards one party for the other party behind him. So that means that the words of Allah personify and then have a case to present to Allah himself. So something that is Allah speaks to Allah, making the case for someone who isn't Allah. So that's Allah speaking to Allah for the created man. Jason Bourne, you have arrived apparently. Let's. I'm going to share the link. Jason, if you're here, bro, can you just send me any? Can you put any message up so I can see that you're here? Are you here? I don't see him. Are you coming, Jason? Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he's not arrived. Anyway, so the thing is, Allah is something that is Allah eternally has personified and is interceding to Allah. Okay, that's shirk, you know, and it's like for me as a Christian, I don't have too much problem with it from my perspective. But I'm judging these things by your perspective, by your arguments against the Christian faith. And I'm saying basically you've got to choose. Either you have to drop your arguments against us, or you have to drop your Quran and Hadiths. I want to state for the record, again, I don't have any problem with the idea that the Quran or the Hadiths teach that Allah enters into his creation. Got no problem with it at all from a Christian perspective, because as a Christian, I believe my God does the same. But when the Daoists are attacking my religion, saying that it's illogical, irrational, inconsistent, contradictory to say that God enters into his creation, then I have to look at these passages and go, well, you know, you got to reject the Hadith and the Quran for the same reason. The idea that Allah's word, the Quran, is speaking to, interceding, is speaking to Allah on behalf of someone else, is a self-contradiction. So I'm being told that Jason comes under different names, and he's appeared today under a different name. So I'll just finish my case, and then I'm going to invite, open it up to Muslims to come. Right. let's have a look. So, so Abu Umama reported, I heard that the messenger said, read the Quran for it will come as an intercessor for its reciters. So we've already done that. Another one is in Sahih Muslim 9992, where it says, An-Nawaz bin Saman reported, I heard the messenger of Allah saying, the Quran and its people who applied it will be brought on the day of resurrection, preceded with Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Imran, arguing on behalf of those who applied them. So now individual surahs of the Quran are going to argue to Allah. So that's Allah's own word becoming personified, arguing to Allah about the goodness or the badness of those Muslims who have applied it. So, you know, you've got a massive problem here, guys. My simple question is, who is the one doing the interceding and who is he interceding to? And this also means that an attribute of Allah has undergone a change. It has changed so that it can become the intercessor. So how can the word of Allah change? I just want to see, is there any other points that I wanted to make? I think that'll do for now. So what I'm going to do, guys, I am going to share a link. And I want to make it clear, please, I'm only inviting Muslims to come on. Anyone who isn't a Muslim, please do not click on the link. Please do not try to join the chat or you will force me to be rude. I don't want to be rude. If you are a non-Muslim and you try to come on the chat, I am going to ask you to leave. I'd rather not do that, and I will just remove you. So please don't put me in that position. Please don't put yourself in that position. I'm just putting this link into the chat so that Muslims can come on and can reply. Okay? So, Jason, if you're there, this is your chance. You come and you troll my chats plenty. Now's your chance. And if you are a Muslim coming on, you're more than welcome. But you're coming on to talk about this topic. You're not coming on to change the topic. And if you try to change the topic and you won't stick to the topic, I'll just remove you. So we're waiting to see if any Muslims want to come on and talk about it. Talk about this topic. So I basically, my request is simply this, Muslims. Be consistent. Either abandon arguments against the incarnation, against the idea of God entering into his creation. Abandon those arguments or abandon Islam. But don't be inconsistent in saying that, you know, that God cannot enter into his creation when you yourselves do not. So I think we have a Muslim called Mafrik. I'm going to let him into the chat. And, well, how you doing, Mafrik?
Hello, Bob. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, thanks be to God. How are you?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad.
Good. I hope you and your family are safe. Can you just confirm for us, please, that you are a Muslim?
I am, yes, but not the Hadith following kind.
You're the what kind?
Quran only.
Okay, so let's just deal with it from a Quran only basis. Now, I don't actually know where Quran only Muslims stand on the idea of God entering into his creation. So do you want to just articulate the position of Quran only Muslims?
Well, yeah, it's pretty simple. In terms of God's quote unquote location, if we can use such a term, he is simply above his creation. So he's above the heavens and the earth.
Okay, can you just show us a verse from the Quran? Take me to a verse in the Quran that says in these words that Allah doesn't enter into his creation, or words to that effect.
There is no such words to that effect.
So if you're saying that you're Quran only, don't you have to agree with what the Quran teaches positively?
Yes, but what the Quran teaches positively is that he's above his creation. So
Okay,
yeah.
go on. No, go on. Yeah,
So
he
because
teaches that he's above his creation. Go on.
yeah, so the idea that he needs to come into his creation is an assumption not found in the Quran.
Okay, so here's where I would dispute this. I would dispute it based upon Surah 67, 16, 17, and Surah 6:3, which clearly identify Allah as being in creation.
I don't remember those verses
That's fine.
to heart right now, but could you
Well,
quote
do you
them
want to
for
pull them
me
up?
or?
Yeah. Do you want to pull them up? Yeah.
Okay.
So in
You said
Surah,
Surah 66?
well, let's do Surah 6, Ayah 3.
One moment. Surah 66?
No, Surah 6, Ayah 3.
Oh, Surah 6, Ayah 3. My apologies.
It would be interesting if there are any Hadith Muslims who want to come in on this, because part of my case is based upon the Hadiths. You're more than welcome to join the chat. So it says, and he is Allah in the heavens and on the earth. He knows what you conceal and what you reveal, and he knows what you earn. So he's being identified as being loci in the heavens and on the earth, that he is omnipresent. Do you believe that Allah is omnipresent?
Yes, of course. Well, it depends how you define that. Firstly, just to address this verse, it simply says that he's the God of the heavens and the earth. It doesn't say that he's present. It doesn't have to be present to be God of both creation, does he?
So it's identifying him as being in the heavens and on the earth. Do you believe that Allah is omnipresent?
No, actually, I just remembered what omnipresent means. No, he's omniscient, as in he has knowledge, but he doesn't
Okay.
need to be present.
Is his knowledge him?
Is his knowledge him?
Yeah.
No, his knowledge is an attribute of him.
So it's not, so it's separate from him.
Well, it's not separate if it's an attribute, is it?
So it's part of him.
Well, it's an. See, when you say part, then you make God into divisions.
Well, this is
like
the problem with. I know, Maverick, and I worded that question deliberately because there are all kinds of problems with Islamic theology, but I'm not trying to drill into Tawhid right now. I just wanted to tickle you on the question of Tawhid. But what I'm really drawing out, Maverick, is the fact that if we truly believe that Allah's knowledge is an essential part of whoever Allah is, regardless of what complications that presents later on down the line to Tawhid. Wait, if we
just use
accept,
the term God?
we're talking about his knowledge. If we are saying that God's knowledge is everywhere, then we are saying that God is present in his creation.
I don't think that's fair, because you can have knowledge of something without necessarily being there. I don't see how you connect knowledge and presence. They're not necessarily interlinked.
So you're saying that, are you saying that this is connected to his, maybe I misunderstood your argument. Are you saying that Surah 6:3 is a connection to his knowledge?
No, Surah 6:3 is a connection to his divinity, as in he's simply the God of the earth and the heavens. But in
And he
terms
is
of,
Allah in the heavens. It's the in bit that I want you to address. Is he in the heavens or not?
well, the issue is the issue is we have to read it contextually, because if you read just a portion, then we can assume all sorts. But if you read the entire verse, then
Yep.
you have, and he is the God in the heavens and in the earth. He knows the secret, whether you declare it or whether you. So he knows your secret and what you declare, and he knows what you earn.
So that's about his knowledge,
That's
right?
simply talking about his.
That's about his knowledge, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So, does he is his knowledge all-encompassing?
Absolutely.
So, does that mean that the whole of creation is inside the mind of Allah? It doesn't, does it? It means that his
Well,
knowledge encompasses all.
yeah, as in his knowledge, he knows of everything. There's nothing he does not know of.
Okay. So, is his knowledge present here?
See, now you make knowledge into a person when you say is knowledge present.
No, I'm saying is he aware? Is he cognitive?
Yes, he's always aware
he's
of
always aware.
everything.
He is present.
Of everything.
And does that presence this? So I mean, I want to drill
Where
in
we
a
jumping
little
to
bit more.
presence?
No. Yeah, because we're talking about omnipresence, right? And what you're saying
No.
is that the God of the Quran is not omnipresent.
Yes, he's only his knowledge encompasses everything, but he does not need to be present everywhere.
Okay, right. We'll swing back around to this because in Surah 67, 16, and 17.
Okay.
Now, were you here for the beginning of this presentation?
I heard a little bit.
Okay. I don't
caught
know
the
how
last
long
bit.
you caught the last bit. Okay, so I do appreciate you coming on and taking the time to speak with us. In Surah 67, 16, and 17, we got multiple different translations. I've already read them. Multiple different translations. This particular translation reads like this: Do you feel secure that he who is over the heaven will not cause the earth to sink with you, and then it should quake? Or do you feel secure that he who is over the heaven will not send against you a violent whirlwind? Then you shall know how terrible has been my warning. But in other translations, it says in heaven. One translation even says in the sky. So the Quran is identifying Allah as being present in heaven. Do you agree that Allah is present in heaven?
Well, okay. I see the problem that you noted there. If you take the in translation, then the question becomes, what is heaven? If you say heaven as in, the the sky that we know of, then obviously that would be an emphatic no. But if you say heaven in terms of paradise or wherever the hereafter is, then perhaps
So
I don't
my question
necessarily
to
see a
you,
problem with that.
my question to you is Allah in heaven?
Provided you do not translate heaven as the sky, I don't see that as necessarily problematic.
Great. Tell me, did Allah create the heaven?
Again, yeah, okay, yeah, all right. Well, depending on how he created everything, yeah.
Okay, so if Allah created the heaven and Allah is in heaven, is it fair to say that Allah is in his creation?
Good point. Great point. Great point.
I don't think I'm being unfair,
Well, no, you're not being unfair there at all.
Right.
You're not being fair there at all.
So my point to you is the Quran is identifying that Allah is in creation, that creation can bear Allah's presence. So let me ask you this question: Is
Mind
the
you, though,
heaven? Hold on. My
can
second.
I just? Yeah.
Go on. Go on.
The thing is, the way that Arabic works is that it always depends on the context. So the word "fi" can be in. Yes, it can be translated as in, but it can
Thank you.
also be translated as over. It can also be
Yep.
translated as afterwards, etc., etc. So every word in the Quran has to be basically determined by the context. So the context, even if you was to say that in this particular context, you could argue that in is fine. The thing with the Quran is you would have to get consistency with the rest of the Quran. So if the rest of the Quran says over, then this particular context has to be read as over.
Well, no, not necessarily. Firstly, the best way to do this is you compare multiple different translations by multiple different linguists and see how they translate it. Now, I've looked at a fourth one whilst you've been talking, and again it translates it. This is quranonline.net. Or do you feel secure, he who holds authority? Well, no, sorry, the authority is in brackets. So it's, or do you feel secure that he who in the heaven would not send against you a storm of stones? I mean, whirlwind, stones. It's sometimes wild, the variance in translations. But
I hear you.
So the thing is, multiple translations are
But I don't think you
translating it as
understood me, bro.
in. Yeah, but so
I
let's
don't think you
just work.
understood. In is not the problem. Hear what I'm saying. Just try and understand me. The in is not the problem. So what I'm saying is you can have it in this particular context that it could be in. You can have it that way. That's not a problem. But what I'm saying is the way the Arabic works and the way the Quran works is that if it's in the rest of the Quran, if it's translated as over, then you would have to be consistent and say that it has to be over. That's just the rule of what's
Well,
happening.
no, I don't agree. The way to settle it on a translation point is to compare lots of different translations and see how multiple linguists triangulate on this particular word, which is what I've been doing whilst you're talking. And consistently, what I'm getting is the word in. And so it isn't a case that if you find another verse that says Allah is over, because I'm willing to accept, Maverick, that Allah is both in the heaven and above the heaven. I'm willing to accept that Allah can be in heaven and above heaven. I don't see these as problematic. But now, if we agree that, because you did agree, Maverick, that Allah is in heaven, can I ask you this question? Two questions.
I entertained it. I'm not necessarily agree. I entertained it. I didn't see the problem until you pointed out for me.
Well, now that I've pointed it out, do you want to change your opinion? Do you want to say that when the Quran says Allah is in heaven, the Quran is wrong, he's not in heaven?
I'm not sure I necessarily have a problem with God being in heaven. I'm really not sure about that. So, well, I'll have to come back to you on that one. But you made a very great point. I'll give you that.
So now permit me to drill into it a little bit more, which is if Allah is in heaven. So I've got right, hold on. I've pulled up a fifth translation while you've been speaking. This is QuranExplorer.com, and again it uses the word "who is in heaven." So if Allah is in heaven, my two questions to you, Maverick, are this: one, are the heavens infinite? And two, are the heavens eternal?
Nothing can be eternal except, nothing can be infinite except the Creator Himself.
Right. So nothing is infinite except the Creator. So we're agreed. Yes. Nothing is infinite except the Creator, and nothing is eternal except the Creator. So would you agree that the Quran has identified Allah as being in heaven? And if Allah is being in heaven, and heaven is neither eternal nor infinite, then the infinite and the eternal has entered into the finite and the limited.
Well, that argument would have to follow, which is why I can't really. I'd have to give you that because it would have to follow. So, give me 1 minute. I need to read this verse. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Do you want to maybe come back a bit later? Shall I take you out for a moment?
Sorry?
Do you want to come out for a minute while you read and think?
All right, say no more. I'll be right back.
Okay. So, guys, if Allah is in the heaven, the heaven is something that Allah created, and the Quran identifies as being Him loci in the heaven. But the heaven is not infinite and it's not eternal, which means that a finite temporal thing has contained the presence of Allah according to the Quran, logically. Now, I mean, I'd be interested to hear the answers of other kinds of Muslims, the Shia, the Sunni. But if Allah has, and so I've sent out the link again, and obviously, Maverick, you're more than welcome back. But if Allah has entered into the finite and the temporal, if he can, what difference does it make whether it's the greatest of the heavens? What is the greatest of the heavens compared to the infinite, eternal, almighty God? It's no bigger than a mother's womb. You know, when we're dealing with infinities, when we're dealing with the grandness of the Almighty, you can imagine the largest heaven you can, but to God, it's nothing more than a gnat or a flea. And yet, according to the Quran, Allah has entered into heaven. And if he has entered into heaven, then that means that he can enter into the finite and the limited. And if he can enter into the finite and the limited, why can't he do that with human flesh? Is it any more of a challenge for God to connect, to enter into the finite flesh than it is to enter into the finite heaven? Do you really think, to the majesty, the almightiness, the greatness of God, that there is any difference between the finitude of the heaven and the finitude of a mother's womb? Where is your logic, Muslims? Your Quran is saying that he has entered into the heaven. Now, whilst and so I would encourage Maverick, and I would encourage others, you have no objection to the incarnation. You have no objection to the idea of God entering into his creation. None at all. And if you're a Muslim and you're watching this, here's your opportunity to show me in your Quran where it says that Allah does not enter into his creation. Show me those words in the Quran. And if you're not going to show me those exact words, I'll be more generous than most Taoists are, and I'll say, show me words to those effect. They don't even have to be the exact words I'm demanding. If you show me words that charitably, to a charitable interpretation, mean exactly that Allah would not enter into his creation, then I would like to see it. Because it does get worse. It says in the Quran, let me just pull this up for you. You know, and just while we're waiting, has anyone got a link to a website that has multiple different Qurans that we can pull up and compare all at the same time? Because I've been trying to find one, and I keep finding different online Qurans, but each one's just singular translation. What I want is a website that has multiple different Qurans, the Quranic translations, so we can, whenever we dispute in an Arabic word, we can just look up how multiple linguists have translated it. If anyone's got that link, I'd really appreciate it if you could put that in the chat for us, please. Because it is, I'm sure I had one. I thought I'd got it saved in my favorites, but clearly not that I can find. But let's look at another passage in the Quran. Okay. You've got other things that indicate, for instance, that Allah has entered into creation, such as Allah rising, for instance. In Surah 20, Ayah 5, we read the following. In Surah 20, Ayah 5, we read this. It's funny, I usually have a host of Muslim trolls, and now none of them want to talk. Lovable trolls. Anyway, the most gracious Allah rose over the Istawa, the mighty throne, in a manner that suits his majesty. Well, the throne is something that he created, and Allah rose above the throne. If he rose above the throne, then that means at some point the throne was above him. That is loci. That depends upon space. The throne is something that Allah created. It is not infinite. It is not omnipresent. It is not everywhere. So for Allah to rise above it, that means that there is loci, position. And that means that Allah is in creation to do that. Because the throne is a created thing. So that indicates that Allah is that Allah is within creation. I want to show you something else, if you just bear with us. Another one in Surah 48, 10. In Surah 48, 10, it reads, "Verily those who give bay'ah, pledge to you, O Muhammad," I am reading the brackets, by the way, "they are giving bay'ah, pledge, to Allah." I mean, that's shirk right there. You know, a pledge to Muhammad is a pledge to Allah? Seriously? The hand of Allah is over their hands. The hand of Allah is over their hands. So you've got Rob Christian. Are you a Muslim? If you're not a Muslim, oh, maybe you didn't know. So I'm only inviting Muslims on. So if you're not a Muslim, please don't try to enter the chat. Please don't try to enter the conversation. I'm only inviting Muslims on. So Rob Christian, brother, on this occasion, I'm going to ask you to just put your comments into the chat. I'm not letting non-Muslims join me. I'm keeping this open for Muslims only. I apologize. Maybe me and you can meet up and do an after show and talk about this in some more detail. So Rob Christian, you're going to need to confirm in the chat that you're a Muslim if you want to come in. I'm sorry. So it's saying in the Quran that Allah's hands are over their hands. That's loci. Not only is that saying that Allah has hands, but he's saying that Allah's hands are over the hands of the believers who are making the pledge to Muhammad. So what you're saying, therefore, is that Allah has entered into his creation. Now, again, as a Christian, I have no problems with this. I don't have any problems with God entering into his creation. It's perfectly fine for me. So I'm not criticizing the Quran for saying that. I'm criticizing the Quran because you say he can't. So that means you've got a choice if you're a Muslim. You've got to either abandon your arguments that are against Christians that say that God enters into his creation, or you have to abandon the Quran and the Hadiths. And I ask you to be consistent. Maverick, be consistent. Abandon the Quran. If you have believed that Allah can't enter into his creation and the Quran is, either abandon the Quran or abandon the argument that God cannot enter into the finite, into the world. So let's have a look. There is another thing that I want to show you. Let's have a look. Oh, it's a favorite one, assuming that I can find it. Where is it? All right, I'll find it in this one. My problem is my notes are just a bit all over the place. So in Surah 75, 22 to 23. So Maverick's coming back in. How you doing, Maverick?
Hello, Bob.
Hello.
Since
Just
you
bear
were
with us 1 second, please. I'm just in the middle of making a point. You feel free to respond to it. So in Surah 75, and I want you to understand, Maverick, as the Muslim present here. You know, this isn't me trying to have a gotcha moment with you guys. I'm just asking you to be consistent. If you were to come on and say, look, I'm going to never attack Christians for saying God enters into his creation again, I'll happily make, you know, peace with you on that. But if you're not willing to be consistent, then you've got a choice to make, whether to abandon Islam or to abandon the arguments being used by Muslims. So in Surah 75, 22 and 23, it says, and some faces that day shall be shining and radiant. In other words, this is a bit where Allah makes you white to get into paradise, guys. So unlucky if you're black. Looking at their Lord. Now, the thing about vision, the thing about vision is that it is a created attribute. It's a created attribute of the created being. I am a created being. I have vision. If Allah enters into this attribute that he has given to me, which is the ability to see, and I see him, then he has entered into the creation. Because I could not see unless Allah had created my vision, and I could not see unless by the will of Allah I could see anything at all. So Allah creates the attribute. He allows the attribute to be sustained from moment to moment. I see by the will of Allah, according to Islamic theology. So if I see Allah, I am seeing something. He has entered into something that he has created. What would you say to that, Maverick?
You made a few points there. If I wanted to address the first thing that you said about the whole faces being white. The word is nadira, and the word is radiant, has nothing to do with whiteness at all. As a matter of fact, I can give you every single description for the root word. If you just give me a minute.
No. It's a side point. I was just throwing in that. I'm more focused on the creation issue.
Are you willing to let that one go then? Because I don't.
For the sake of argument, we'll just let that one go.
All right. So the next one was looking towards God.
Yeah.
Okay. It simply says ila rabbiha nadira. So towards its Lord looking. So we're looking towards God, but I don't know what you could take from that.
They're seeing Allah.
See, that's pushing it. Looking towards God. And,
Again, this is why I need a link.
Looking towards God and seeing Allah.
Yeah, bear with us. Again, this is you're going to dispute it on the translation, but the translation from here, for instance, in Surah 75, 22 and 23, Surah 75, 22 to 23 is some faces that day will beam in brightness and beauty, looking towards their Lord. Let me ask you this question. If you're looking towards your Lord, do you expect to see him?
Do I expect to see God?
Yeah.
No, to be honest, there's nothing in the Quran that says that I will see him. So no, not necessarily. However, I will say that this verse that you're quoting, it literally says, "Ila Rabbi nadira." Ila towards Rabbi God nadira, looking. So looking towards God, but seeing his face, that's
I never said seeing his face. I never said seeing his face.
Huh?
I never said that they're seeing his face. What I'm saying is this passage seems clear to me, and I think that I'm not being uncharitable or unfair when I am saying that that it is giving the impression that the believer is going to see Allah. I mean, think about it.
It's giving the impression that you will meet Allah.
That you will see Allah. It's looking.
No, I would say meet.
Meet?
See is,
no, it says
know.
looking.
Yes.
Bro, it says looking towards their Lord.
Yeah, but looking. Yeah.
Yeah, what does looking imply?
Towards their Lord mean though?
Well, looking implies vision, does it not? If I look towards the north, does that not mean I am turning my face in the direction of the north and I am looking at the things in a northerly direction? If I look towards the tree,
no, but you can look towards a direction without necessarily that direction being visible. It's just something that you look towards. It's just something that you aim at.
So the thing is, if they are looking towards their Lord, does that not imply direction?
I'll give you that it implies direction.
Does direction imply? Sorry, 1 second. Does direction imply loci? Locality?
Well, it implies the goal. So I'll give you that the loci is the goal, but it doesn't imply that they're necessarily seeing that loci, though, does it?
So
I
just
can look towards going. I can look. I'm 1 minute. I'm going to Acton, for example. Now I can look towards Acton, but it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily seeing Acton. It's just where I want to head to.
So we're not disputing the fact that they are going to be looking in a particular direction, and that direction is towards Allah.
I'll give you that.
Okay. Now it says here in this translation that I'm holding in my hand, it says looking at their Lord. Does that imply that they will see him?
At it, well, if it says, which verse are you reading now?
I'm reading Surah 75, and that was Ayah 23, looking at their Lord. I'll put it on the camera for you so you can see I'm not making it up. Not that I think you think that I'm making it up, but let's just Surah looking at their Lord. Look, right? So that's the Quran. Do you see it? Looking at their Lord is what it says. If I look at you, do I see you? Maverick? If I look at you, do I see you?
Yeah, 1 moment. I'm trying to look at that verse.
Surah 75.
Are you talking? Is this still the same verse you're referring to?
Yeah, I'm still in Surah 75. I'm still on Ayah 23. I haven't changed. All I've done is change the translation. Because when people argue about the translation, the way to solve it is you just look at multiple different translations. And you see what the what the triangulation is on the translations. So I'm pulling up another translation to see what it says. I really need one. Maverick, I don't suppose you know of a website that pulls up multiple different translations all at the same time.
Oh.
If someone could share that in the link, that'd be great in the chat. So my point is, if they are looking towards their Lord, they are seeing him. So we've got this one, Quranx.com.
See,
Let's
that's
pull
where
that one up.
Looking.
Go on.
There's a jump that you make. Looking towards and seeing, that's a jump there. Looking towards could simply be your goal. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're seeing your goal.
I think that, I mean, let's just pull up multiple different translations and see what they say. Surah 75. Thanks for the person that stuck that into the chat. And we're looking for verses. I think it's that one. Next. So Pictol translates it looking towards their Lord. Sahih International translates it looking at their Lord. Yusuf Ali translates it as looking towards their Lord. I genuinely don't think that I'm being unfair in saying that. Let's pull up some other translations. Ahmed Ali's, wow, randomly says waiting for their Lord. Ahad Khan, waiting for their Lord.
Look at the word illa. How do they translate the word
towards
illa?
their Lord, looking.
How do they translate the word illa?
No, Maverick. I'm just pulling up different translations of what it isn't breaking it down word for word for me, bro. I don't have that in front. I don't have that means in front of me. What I'm just pulling up lots of different translations, looking at their Lord, towards their Lord. I don't think I'm being unfair. It's implying that they're going to see Allah.
Bob, what I'm trying to say to you is, like, the word at is not there because the word illa is always towards. So it will always have to be. You've only got 3 Arabic words there. You've got illa, rabbaka, nadira. So rabbaka you already know is God. Nadira is the looking. So you have illa. Illa will always be God. So this is not a translation problem.
I'm no offense, Maverick, but I'm going to go off these translations because unless you've produced your own translation of the Quran, have you done that?
No, I'm trying to say this is something that you can verify yourself.
What I'm saying is, I've got multiple.
You don't have to rely on me.
Maverick, I've got multiple different translations, bro. And here's what they say. Ahmed Ali translate it, waiting for their Lord. Ahmed Khan translates it, looking toward.
Dictionary?
Maverick, bro, just listen to what linguists are translating these words as. You can look at the Arabic yourself, but these are linguists who have translated the entire Quran. I think it's worth listening to their testimony in our discussion.
But who do you think is supreme in this context?
1 second. So here's Ahmed Ali says, Maverick,
linguist or the dictionary?
Maverick, Ahmed Ali says, waiting for their Lord. Ahmed Khan says, looking to their Lord. The Corpus Quran says, towards their Lord, looking. Hilali and Khan translate it, looking at their Lord. Muhammad Sawar translates it, and look forward to receiving mercy from their Lord. Muhammad Shakir translates it, looking to their Lord. Pictol translates it, looking toward their Lord. Itani translates it, looking towards their Lord. Wahihuddin Khan translates it, looking towards their Lord. Yusuf Ali translates it, looking towards their Lord. Now, the thing is, when you're looking towards your Lord, when you're looking towards something, you're seeing it. If I look towards the car, I'm seeing it. If I look towards the tree, I'm seeing it. If I look towards, the moon, I'm seeing it. Am I not? Am I being unfair?
I hear you, Bob. Continue on. No, you're not being unfair. I'll be right back. You continue. I'll be right back. Yeah.
Okay. So the fact of the matter is that the Quran is saying that that Allah is in His creation. The Hadiths are saying that Allah is in His creation. So I'm going to put in the link for those of you that have arrived late. This is for. I'm inviting Muslims because every now and then I'll do a live stream and Muslims come on and they troll the chats and they do their dawah in the chats and they don't partake in the conversation. So I'm inviting Muslims only to come and take up my challenge about whether Allah can enter into his creation. Because here's a summary of my contention. As a Christian, I obviously believe that God can and does enter into his creation. I believe that the Quranic texts say that Allah does and can enter into his creation. As a Christian, I have no problems with that at all. But Muslims argue against Christianity on the basis that Allah enters into his creation. So by their logic, they should reject their hadiths and reject their Quran, which say that Allah can and does enter into his creation. Or they should have the integrity that I say that they don't have. Taoists don't have integrity, and stop arguing against Christians on the basis of God entering into his creation. So this link that I'm about to put out is only for Muslims, and I am only inviting Muslims to come on. So if you're a Muslim, feel free to join the conversation. I'll be going in 29 minutes. And I just find it ironic that I have so many trolls in the chat. And then when I give them the opportunity to challenge me face to face, they go running. It's just like the corner. Now, Maverick, God bless him, he's a Quranist Muslim. He wants to defend it. And I would just say to Maverick, bro, like, just be consistent. Either accept that God can enter into his creation, or abandon the Quran, because the Quran says that he enters into his creation. Me and Maverick have already identified that Allah enters into the heaven. If he enters into the heaven, something that he created, then by entering into the heaven, he has entered into something that is not eternal and is finite. So H is going to join us. I'm assuming that H is a Christian, and so is Mr. Brown. I think I know who that is. I want to make it clear, guys, before you come on, this is not an opportunity for you to change the subject. We are talking about what the Quranic texts, what Islam teaches, what the Quranic texts and the Hadiths teach about Allah entering into his creation. So if you try to change the topic, I will remove you. Please do not make me a rude host. Stick to the topic. You know what the topic is. So apart from that, come in. How are we doing, H? How are we doing, Mr. Brown?
Hello, how are you?
I'm all right, thanks be to God. How are you?
Good. Crazy times we're living in nowadays.
Just a little bit. H, how are you? Has H come on just to be a H on the screen and he's not going to participate? You're going to have to mute yourself, H. You've got yourself on mute. H? Okay, he's gone. So, Mr. Brown, you've heard my arguments. Were you here from the beginning? Did you hear the whole presentation that I made?
Yes, I have.
Brilliant.
Heard a lot of it, yeah.
How would you respond?
Basically, what I've been taught is basically there's a knowledge that God sent to earth, which is in the form of the Quran and the Gospels and what have you, right? And then there's an ultimate knowledge which is with him and is always with him. He is omnipresent in the sense he sees everything, but he's not with you in the toilet, in that sense. He's not with you if you're in the bedroom with your wife, doing your thing, in that sense. Yes, he's omnipresent because he sees everything and he hears everything. He is above his creation, as the brother said earlier, and he's above his throne. He's not on his throne. For us to understand in our language, what we know as human beings is quite complex for us to understand it. To what it really means by he's above the heavens, because how many heavens are there? And above the throne as well. What is the throne? For us to understand, even grasp it is something for us. I think it would be very difficult to understand. We can only put it into a language what we understand right now, right?
Okay.
And whatever it is, it'll be limited for us to understand, to grasp it.
I just want to check something, because you seem to be talking about omniscience, God's knowledge, and you use the word omnipresent. Was that just a category mistake? Did you mean God is omniscient, but he's not omnipresent? Or are you equating God's omniscience, his complete knowledge, with omnipresence, as in his knowledge is everywhere and therefore his presence is everywhere?
No, there's a limited knowledge what is sent to Earth,
Yeah.
what we can grasp. Because if it gives everything, our heads will explode. So there's
Okay,
limited.
that's not okay. You're talking about the knowledge that the revelation.
But what I'm saying is that there is the knowledge that is on Earth is limited. God's knowledge ultimately is there's an ultimate knowledge what God has with him, and that's always with him. It will never leave him. And what
Okay.
we have on Earth is limited. But what I'm saying that God is present everywhere. He's watching the heavens, all the heavens. He's in control of everything. But what I'm saying, he's not with you. Like if you're in the toilet, he's not going to be there present with you, right? He's not going
Okay.
to be with you in the bedroom.
Okay.
He's aware of everything. He sees everything. He hears everything.
Yep.
But he's not with you. What we
Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown.
our God is close to us closer to us than our jugular vein.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what
Brown.
we believe.
Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
I am right in understanding you believe in the Hadiths, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so when the Hadiths say the Lord descends every night to the lowest heaven,
Yeah.
when 1/3 of the night remains, and you know the rest because this is a classic Hadith. I'm sure you've heard talks on
I've heard it.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it says the Lord descends, and then in the Quran it says the most gracious Allah rises over the throne, would you agree that descending and rising are connected to the attribute of locality?
And again, we're applying what we understand limitedly here on Earth. So when he says descend, we can't really understand. What do we mean by descend? Like he's on a lift going up and down
Well,
from
that
each
seems
floor?
to be what it's saying. It
Yeah,
says the Lord
but that's
descends every night to the lowest heaven.
and again, that's for us to understand in our limited knowledge. When
So
he says he could have used another language, but then we won't understand it.
exactly.
You know,
So he used this language,
if
so we should understand what it says.
100 years ago, if I applied the pi equation or the golden mean ratio, people won't understand it, right? So it's the same thing. So when God is giving you a language for you to understand, it's just something which is minute for you to understand, and that's it. We don't dwell we don't focus on that portion of it. We just
Well,
understand that okay, he comes up and down, he watches over, and he goes back up.
there
And
you go.
that portion, and again, but that portion is, and again, is we can't really 100% understand that knowledge because it was given to us in a language for us to
Mr.
only
Brown.
grasp.
Mr. Brown.
Basically,
Mr. Brown.
yeah.
So my point to you is, bro, that the hadiths are saying that Allah enters into the lowest heaven. If Allah descends to the lowest heaven, is it fair for me to conclude that the Quranic literature, Islamic literature, is saying that Allah has entered into his creation?
No.
Can you show me, please, then, Mr. Brown, in these words, or words to these effect, where it says in the Quran that Allah does not enter into the heavens? Because the hadiths say that he does.
I don't know if there is any words or if it will say that because I haven't completely finished my studies, so I couldn't give you that answer. But
Shall I tell you why we know it
as
doesn't?
as far as I'm aware, Allah would not come to his creation if it descends to the lowest point. And again, we don't understand. We only understand the word descent, and we can only decipher from that
Okay.
word, and we just understand it that way. But to understand in the spiritual sense, descent is something different.
So,
Like,
Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown,
one second, Bob, just before you cut me, like when he says Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind, are we supposed to believe an actual whirlwind came and took him up to heaven?
right.
How far is from earth to heaven? It's
So,
obviously
Mr. Brown,
speaking a spiritual language, what we can't understand.
so your defense is, Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown, your defense is, your idea is that all of this language about rising and descending is all metaphor, that it's not actually rising and descending, that it is metaphor to something else. So here's my issue, is that if you're saying that it is metaphor, it is still saying that Allah is present in his creation in some way, even if it doesn't mean that he is bodily present. It means that he is present in some way. And my argument to you is that if he is present in any way in his creation, then my argument stands. So here's my question to you, Mr. Brown. Since you're the one who's marshaled the argument of metaphor, tell me, what is it about Allah that descends into the lowest heaven?
I won't know, Bob. I couldn't answer that one. Like I said, I haven't completely finished that portion of the study to go
That's fair
deeper
enough.
in.
So, no, that's fine, Mr. Brown. That's totally fine. But my point to you is, if anything, if any aspect of Allah descends into the creation, then Allah has entered into his creation, because you and I know that you can't split up Allah's attributes from Allah. You can't divide him like a cake. You can't divide him into parts. He is one, a monad, which means if any aspect of Allah has entered into his creation, the whole of Allah, the essence of Allah has entered into his creation. So
that's your understanding, Bob. We Muslims understand it differently.
So show, but when you say that we understand it differently, but then when I asked you to explain it, you said that you couldn't. So how do you know? You can't have it both ways. And I have seen you, hijabi. I will let you in. You can't have it both ways. You can't say on one hand, oh, he's ran away. Hijabi's gone. You can't have it both ways. You can't say we understand it in a different way, but then when I ask you to explain what that different way is, say, well, I don't know, I haven't studied that. Well, if you don't know, you haven't studied that, then how do you know I'm wrong?
Basically, Bob, all my life we've been taught that Allah, so we understand that he descends up and down from first heaven to the seventh heaven, right? But that descent, we don't know if it's really Allah or not. When he says we, for all we know, it could be using the royal we, and the royal we is usually either angels, or for all we know, it could be anything else. So, and again, Bob, like I said, I cannot explain that part to you 100%. You have to speak to somebody who actually studied that portion properly to give you a proper understanding and explanation for it. But as far as I understand, what I've been taught throughout the years, because when you're taught, you don't go into it in details unless you go into the actual studies, right, Bob? As you know, you're just taught, and you get fed, you study, and then you carry on.
That's fine. That's fine. But what I'm saying to you is, you can't say I'm wrong if you don't know yourself. Now, Mohammed Hijab is here. Hijabi. I'm not saying it's Mohammed Hijab from the corner. How you doing, Mohammed? Oh, he's gone again. Maybe he's probably got a technical fault. He's clearly trying to join. So my point to you is, Mr. Brown, is that the Quran is saying that Allah rises above his throne. Would you agree with me logically that if Allah rises above his throne, then that means that his throne was above him at some point?
No. His throne above him?
Yeah.
No.
So when Quran says in Surah 20, Ayah 5, that Allah rises above his throne, what does that mean?
And again, it's a language that we don't understand. You'll have to speak to Arabic, because it's just translated into plain English for you to just grasp it. But then again, you'll have to go deeper into it to understand what it's saying. Allah rising and descending above his throne and to the first heaven.
But if you can't show me, here's another challenge, Mr. Brown, right?
Yeah.
You've gone to the corner. You know how the game works. Muslims say, show me in these words where Jesus says, I am God. Well, show me in these words where the Quran says that Allah does not enter into his creation.
I'm actually going through my notes right now as we speak, but there's so many.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, guys, and here's my point, Mr. Brown, to you and to Imran, who I'm about to let on. Here's my point, and I will let you on, Imran. Just bear with me 1 second, please. Here's my point to you is, I don't actually have a problem with the Quran and the Hadiths teaching that Allah enters into his creation. I really don't. Genuinely don't have a problem with that at all. But what I do have a problem is with Muslims arguing against the Christian belief of the incarnation. And also the fact that your texts clearly teach that Allah does enter into his creation. So you've got to do one of two things. You either have to stop arguing against the idea of the incarnation, or you have to abandon Islam. make your choice, but please be consistent. Imran, you've vanished, mate. Suddenly, everyone seems to be having technical problems. I'll put this up for Hijabi, and Imran. Please do come back. I was only finishing my point, and then I was going to let you on. Just to be clear, you're on to talk about the topic at hand, not to change the topic. Go on, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, Bob, same topic, but if I was to just reverse it back to you and say, can you show me from the Old Testament where God in those words says that he entered into, he became a human being, or he's going to become.
Oh, he's gone
Did you
again.
hear that, Bob?
No, I didn't, because the other guy had his mic on and there was a lot of back noise. Go on, say that again.
So I was going to say, from the Old Testament, if I reverse that question back to you, what you're asking Muslims, so from the Old Testament, can you show me where God of the Old Testament is telling mankind that he will become human, or he will enter into a human body?
Yeah, well, I mean, firstly, I'm going to just remind you of the rules, Mr. Brown, that you came on with, which is that we're not changing the topic. So we're talking about what the Islamic texts say. So I'm not going to enter into changing the topic. Mohammed Hijabi, do you have anything to say? You might want to turn down your speakers, mate, because there's a lot of backfeed. Okay, I think we're just having issues. Some people are having issues. So my point to you is, let me ask you this question, Mr. Brown. Yeah. The Quran says that Allah is in heaven. Do you believe that Allah is in heaven?
He's above the heavens, above his throne.
Does the Quran say that Allah is in heaven?
In heaven, there are seven. There are seven heavens. Depends which one you're talking about. And then again, when you say in heaven, what do you mean by it? Can you define it a bit more further?
So what we've got is we've got hadiths that say that Allah descends. I'm going to try one more time to let Imran in. If he disappears again, I'm not going to try and let him in because he's obviously having lots of technical problems. Imran, are you there? Imran? Nope. Okay, so I'm not going to let Mohammed Hijabi back in or Imran back in because they're obviously having some kind of technical problem, or they're just wasting my time. I don't know which. So we've got hadiths that say that Allah descends. It says that very clearly in black and white. We've got the Quran, which says that Allah is in heaven in Surah 67. Do you want to pull up your Quran, Mr. Brown? So in Surah 67.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's verses 16 and 17.
1 second.
Totally fine. Al-Mulk, for them of you that know it via the passages. And thanks to a brother who's much better at this than me, we now have in multiple translations. So in Surah 67, Ayah 16, it says, "Are you so afraid that he who is in heaven?" And we've got that in multiple different translations, that Allah is in heaven. Do you believe that the Quran is correct when it says that Allah is in heaven? That's my question. Is the Quran correct when it says Allah is in heaven?
Yeah, it's not necessarily like it. So we have 7 heavens. So it's not in like a particular heaven. So yeah, when he says in heaven, yeah, he's in heaven, but
right,
he's
brilliant.
above the heavens. He's above the heavens.
No, it says in heaven, bro. That's what it
so
says.
When he says in heaven, when he says in heaven, and again we have to decipher it what it means by it.
If it meant,
not,
Mr. Brown, just bear with me logically. If it meant to say above heaven, don't you think Allah would have said above heaven? He's not saying above heaven, he's saying in heaven. Are you accusing Allah of not knowing his prepositions?
No, and again, it's a language. It's a
so
language.
Does in heaven mean in heaven or not?
And again, Bob, so last time we had a discussion where the word honor was involved, right? You understand the word honor as being meaning something else. Like I translate the word honor in literally, so which is means to hold somebody high esteem, or to respect somebody, revere somebody, right? The word honor, but you understand it in the biblical tense, the word honor as to mean worship, to worship somebody. So when he says to honor thy father and honor their son as you will honor me, you understand the word honor right there as being worship, or worship Jesus as you would worship me. That's what you tried to say to me last time. But if Englishly, if we translate it, it just simply means to hold somebody in great respect. So if you respect, if God is saying, if you respect me, you respect my son.
Mr.
If you
Brown,
respect my son, you
Mr. Brown,
respect
you've
me.
gone so far away from the verse
I'm
we're
not. I
discussing.
haven't.
It
I
says
haven't.
in heaven. Now you're
But
talking
when it
about
says in
honor. We're
heaven,
talking about
but
in heaven.
when he says in heaven, we don't know what it actually means by in heaven. Which heaven?
Right.
So when he says in heaven, he is in heaven. Yeah, he's
So
above
let's
the
just
heaven,
let's
as
just
we
deal with that
know.
argument. Let's just
But
deal with
as
that
a
argument.
whole, it's heaven, right? As a whole, it's a heaven, right?
Let's just deal with that argument. So, one second. I just want to address two people that are waiting. Firstly, the goat. Please remove yourself if you're not a Muslim. I'm only inviting Muslims to chat. So, if you are not a Muslim, please remove yourself from the chat. Otherwise, if I let you in and you're not a Muslim, I'm going to have to remove you from the chat. And obviously, that makes me rude. So, please spare me that. Spare yourself that. If you're not a Muslim, don't try to enter the chat, please, today. So please, the goat, I'll give you a few seconds to remove yourself if that is not you. Mohammed Hijabi, I've tried to get you and he's gone again. He keeps, I don't know what's going on. He just seems to be wasting my time, I think. So in terms of what we're talking about, Mr. Brown, we're talking about the Quran saying that Allah is in heaven. Now, regardless of which heaven we're talking about, can you tell me, is there such a thing as an eternal, uncreated heaven? Mr. Brown.
Bob. I'm not sure, Bob.
Okay, I can tell you there's no such thing as an eternal, uncreated heaven. Not in Islam. Heaven is something that Allah creates. So if Allah is in any heaven or descends to any heaven, that means that he is inside something that is finite and created. And if he can enter into something that is finite and uncreated, the heaven, there's no reason to argue that he can't do that to a human body. And why? Because the difference between the infinite and the finite, the biggest heaven you can think of is still only finite to Allah. And if it is finite to Allah, then it might as well be a flea or a gnat. And Allah is described in the Quran, as you can see in the verse that we're talking about, he's said to be in heaven, not above the heaven. If it wanted to say above, it would say above. It doesn't say above. It says in heaven. So either Allah is a bad communicator, and you know better than Allah because you're saying above, but he's saying in, or he's a better communicator than you. He means what he says, and he said in, and you don't want to believe that Allah is in heaven because that is something that Allah created. So whose do I believe, the Quran or Mr. Brown?
Bob, and again, it's illogical to think that God could enter in, like God being a giant, or a giant would become an ant. It's illogical.
So Allah can't be in heaven then?
It's illogical for a queen to become a peasant. It's illogical.
Okay, let me let in the goat. The goat, you're in. You're going to have to unmute yourself. So, Mr. Brown, the goat, can you just confirm first that you are a Muslim? Okay, if you're not going to talk, I'll just remove you. Last chance.
I doubt it very much he'd be a Muslim if he's got the title, the goat.
Well,
the goat is in reference to this whole pagan satanic movement in America.
Yeah. So my point is what we've got, Mr. Brown, is that the Quran is saying that Allah is in heaven. The Hadiths are saying that it descends to the lowest heaven. So I have all this material that is saying that Allah enters into his creation, and then I have Mr. Brown saying that he doesn't. So you're now arguing against your Quran.
I'm not, Bob.
Then show me a verse in the Quran that says that Allah can't enter a creation.
If he says in the Quran that Allah is in heaven, maybe his omnipresence is in heaven.
Great. So that's an attribute of Allah, right?
I don't know, Bob. I don't know, Bob. That's
My,
something that you'll have to take up with an expert.
so if Allah is present in any form in His creation, then
He won't.
it's
and
not
again,
divisible. Is Allah divisible?
and again, we don't know if he's in a form and what form. When we're talking about something, we're talking about God here, basically, the creator of the heavens and the earth, and that in between.
Correct.
So when we talk about form, we can't. And again, we're talking about the human sense, what we know in our limited mind. So when we say form, we're thinking of a form, of a figure, or we really don't know. We really don't know, Bob. And again, when we say fourth heaven, what do we know about fourth heaven?
What we know is
understand
that it's created. Here's what we do know, Mr. Brown. It's
I understand
created.
that fourth heaven basically is in our language, this new modern science language is fourth dimensions, and there are seven. Like, let me say this quick thing, Bob. Before
Mr. Brown, what we know about the heavens is that they are not infinite and they are not eternal, which means that they are created finite things. And if Allah is identified as being in something that is not eternal and not infinite, then He is in His creation. And I'm
Bob,
just going to...
I think you might be a little bit right there, Bob. The heavens were created, and it says at the end of days, right at the end, when the world is destroyed, He will destroy everything else. So He will destroy the heavens, the earth, the earth. He will kill all the angels. He will order the angel of death to kill everything.
And then the last angel is death himself. And then Allah says, who remains? And then the angel of death speaks, I am left. And then Allah gets rid of the angel of death. I'm aware of the story. But the point is, Mr. Brown.
So yeah, it was created and it will be destroyed. But then God says He will create.
So then Allah is identified as being in heaven. Which means,
and again, when he says He's in heaven, for all we know, is His knowledge.
Great.
It's His wisdom.
Tell me, Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown, is Allah's knowledge and wisdom part of Allah? Is it Allah?
Of course, it would be.
Right. So Allah is in creation, then, isn't He?
And again, you're using that thingy, the understanding of a Western Christian understanding to say that, you want to superimpose this thing where it clearly is not.
Clearly it's not. Based on what, Mr. Brown? Based on what? You haven't provided a verse from the Quran. You haven't provided a hadith. All you've done is say, well, I disagree with your interpretation. All I'm doing is taking your text and reading them to you. That is literally what I am doing.
And applying it with Christology. Because you understand God becoming a human being. And that's the way you understand it. But we Muslims understand this form being different. Like you understand God coming in the burning bush. But we Muslims believe that it wasn't God. It was an angel of God speaking through the burning bush. Yeah. And, there's so many things. Then you have, Genesis, I think. No. Is it Genesis? No, I don't. Genesis 18, I think it is. Is it? Where God comes and visits Abraham. You believe it was actually God who visited Abraham. So, and again, we believe it could have been an angel. And when God says we,
Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown, you're not dealing with the simple argument I presented to you. The simple argument that I presented to you is this. I'll just lay it down for you, A, B, C. A, Allah has created the heavens. B, Allah descends to the lowest heaven. C, Quran states that Allah is in heaven. Conclusion, Allah has entered into the finite and created. The infinite and uncreated has entered into the finite and the created. Therefore, since to the infinite and uncreated, anything that is finite and created are the same, it makes no difference whether we're talking about a woman's womb or the heavens themselves. The fact that Allah can enter into them means that Muslims have no argument that it can be consistent against the idea of the incarnation. How does Allah enter into the finite and the infinite as he descends into the lowest heaven?
Bob, we don't, as Muslims, we don't believe Earth is part of the first heaven.
Is it created?
Earth is created, but we don't believe it's part of the first heaven.
I wasn't asking about the earth. I was asking about the heavens. Are the heavens created?
The heavens are something, of course they are, but we are not there.
There we go then. There we
are
go.
not there.
Yeah, but Allah is. That's the point.
It's a different creation. It's a different creation.
So does Allah enter into it or not?
For all we know, when he says enter, it's his knowledge, his angels.
Is his knowledge himself? Is Allah's knowledge separate from Allah himself?
Is your knowledge separate from you?
My knowledge is not identified as me, but no, it isn't separate from me. My knowledge is part of who I am. You destroy my knowledge, you destroy
ultimately, God has the ultimate knowledge, and there's an ultimate knowledge always with
Mr. Brown. Unfortunately, you're not thinking this through. If Allah's knowledge is non-separable from himself, if it is an intrinsic quality to him, then that means if Allah's knowledge enters into creation, Allah has entered into creation, because Allah cannot be divided. Allah is present in his creation, and if he is present in any way or in any part of his creation, Muslims have no argument against the incarnation. None.
We do. We still do, Bob, because we're talking about heaven and earth here, right? And heaven and earth is separate, Bob.
I don't think you get what I'm saying.
I do. I totally do get what you're saying. You're saying that if God can enter heaven, why wouldn't it be possible for God to come to earth and be on earth, be in a form of a human? Not completely, but partly. Why not? It could be possible. Yeah. But I'm saying it's not logical.
I thank you, and this is what I'm saying back to you, is that your own logic now defeats your own religion, because you're saying that it is not. 1 second, Mr. Brown. You're saying that it is not logical for the infinite to enter into the finite, for the uncreated to enter into creation. But that is exactly what you say when you say that Allah has entered into the heavens, because the heavens are finite, they are created. And it makes no difference whether it's the heaven or a mother's womb. The reality is that they are both gnats to God. They are both fleas to God. They're nothing to God. They are both infinitesimally of insignificance compared to his glory. So if he can enter into the heaven and descend into the lowest heaven, then it's no harder for him at all to enter into a woman's womb. It's not any more difficult. It's not any more challenging, and it's not any less paradoxical. But I would not go so far as to say, from my point of view, that it's contradictory. But you're the one that's arguing that it is contradictory. So if it's contradictory in my faith, it's contradictory in your faith. Now, I'm going to give the GOAT, Imran, and Mohammed Hijabi one last chance to join the conversation. But if they, just because I want to be charitable. Mr. Brown, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me. I hope you're reading those books, bro. I really encourage you to think about, maybe replay our conversation. Replay it. And just think about what I'm trying to say, because I know right now you're on defense mode, but just think about the logic of what I'm saying and ask yourself if I'm making a fair point. I'm being consistent. I'm saying that I don't have a problem with these texts from a Christian perspective. I'm saying that your arguments against my religion mean that you should have a problem with these texts from your perspective. Okay, so let's give the GOAT his second bite. GOAT, do you want to speak? Okay. All right, he's obviously just...
Bob, it was a pleasure speaking to you. Hope to see you at Speaker's Corner soon. And to the viewers, stop hating. Love is the answer. I see a lot of hate.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. You take care of yourself, and Merry Christmas. So, there you go, guys. We've got a clear contradiction between what Taoists say, what the texts of Islam say, and what Muslims say about Christianity. And my simple request is, if you're a Muslim, be consistent. Either use your logic and reject Islam and reject the Quran and the Hadiths, or stop arguing against the incarnation and keep Islam, but accept that even your books say that Allah can enter into his creation. Okay, let's close. Lord, what I love, I have unto thy law. All the day long is my study in it. Thou, through thy commandments, hast made me wiser than mine enemies, for they are ever with me. I have more understanding than my teachers, for thy testimonies are my study. I am wiser than the aged, because I keep thy commandments. I have refrained my feet from every evil way, that I may keep thy word. I have not shrunk from thy judgments, for thou teachest me. Oh, how sweet are thy words unto my throat, yea, sweeter than honey unto my mouth. Through thy commandments I comprehend understanding. Therefore I hate all evil ways. This is the word of the Lord. God bless you guys. Mr. Brown, review our conversation, bro. You'll get it eventually. Yaya, good to see you. When are you going to become a Christian? Take care.